It's interesting thinking about this earlier scores, because when I think now, for example, this Grit in Stück 1998.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In a certain way, it's what was notated worked usually as a kind of a filter, in which you only have required some decisions for the performance. For example, who will be playing in which space it will be playing. Only then you could know more or less how it will sound, apart from the overall, let's say, maybe sounds. But so it's because if you look at the score, you can't say what will sound, even though we have all the pitches notated, because you don't know who will be playing, and only by knowing who will be playing, you know which pitches will be sounding, and in this sense, it's a structure and a filter, and only in the performance then you know you come to a sounding result. And I feel it's how I work now, but now I work with words, and obviously words are more unspecific in a certain way than musical notation. So I can see very well how it worked in this work in the 90s, and what is still here in this work. I mean, I also tried, I remember when I consciously decided not to write any more dynamic indications. It was at the time in 1997. I just don't want to have any indication ideas anymore. Because I felt that every sound bears its proper dynamic in itself. The way you play, the range, the instrument. And so, in a certain way, you always can use language to say it has to be piano, it has to be very soft. Or you just can describe in other words.
Well, then you started to write for itself.
Yes.
Simple. Or was that then?
Yes. And then a few years later, this indication in a certain time became almost an entire score.
Yes, yeah.
The prose score for one or a few performers.
I kind of think of your music as having kind of moved out of the concert hall, but you still obviously, it's not actually, because we just did something in April, but it's a strange thing within the context of a concert program, I suppose, isn't it? It's very kind of violent intrusion of not giving somebody something, or not giving somebody something that they expect.
I feel now comfortable with the idea that that all is somehow possible. So, let's say, kind of a rather traditional concert situation, or going just out for a walk, or in a garden.
But in a concert situation, you are being very provocative. But if it's an outside situation, it's camouflaged somehow. It's just part of the world,
I think, the good thing strange for me to defend the concert situation.
Exactly. I can see how it works in a concert situation, and it's a place where you have where people go to listen.
I mean, the good thing still about concert situations are that people, they go and stay for an hour, and which usually in museums will not happen.
Yeah.
So, in a certain way, in these concert settings, if you can arrange it in an open way, that people could easily walk out. Or some settings are so focused, and anyway I don't like this. But some settings are like people coming together in a closed room, you know? And then it's nice, because then in a certain way you share something in a room. And of course this is always more tricky than being out in the woods or something, because physically you have to share, you have to deal with each other. But in a certain way, I think this is a quality to make people come together. I mean, my concern always was that if you just accept the concert situation as a law somehow, then it's problematic for the way you can think or conceive music, because it's a limited situation.
Yes, yeah.
Or a limiting situation. But if you can deal it in another way, then you still can work with the situation in a powerful way. Maybe I think if you imagine people coming together just to have dinner together, to drink, to talk, sometimes you just move and you're out of the whole bunch of people for 10 minutes, but you come back. So in a certain way, a situation where you can be there, but you don't feel like being obliged to be there all the time. And because in a certain way you can, in the concert halls, you feel this architecture runs parallel to the kind of focus on the musical object.
Yes.
So it's a hard architecture, and the focus is a hard focus on the musical structure, and also the way you have to behave.
Yes.
Is also a hard.
Yeah.
It's a rather hard understatement. A hard.
It's society, isn't it? It's a society, and you know what that means. Behaviour, and for example, you know, if one person doesn't like the performance and starts to shout, then it's actually more. It disrupts the society rather than the music, you know, because it's then about how you behave with other people and being respectful or not, or you know, whatever your own feeling is.
Yes, that's interesting. I mean, all is done to be sure of an appropriate performance, but in a certain way, when you don't behave well, the music can stand or survive, but the society has to deal then with this kind of rupture.